When you want to succeed as bad as you want to breathe, then you'll be successful. And I'm here to tell you, number one, that most of you say you want to be successful, but you don't want it bad. You just kind of want it.
Work ethic eliminates fear, So if you put forth the work, then what are you fearing? You know what you're capable of doing, what you're not.
If you put your mind to doing whatever you want to do, good things can happen.
Because limits, like fears, are often just an illusion.
You're listening to the Plunkett Fitness Project. Here's your host, Jamie Plunkett.
Hey, what's up, everybody? We are doing our first podcast of 2019. So today it is January 10th. We're going to talk about some New Year's resolutions that people do and kind of some advice I have on that. And then we're going to talk about the New Year's challenge that we started on December 31st that runs through the entire month of January. So basically we will do challenges 2 to 3 times a year, and it's basically a way to get people in the gym at a pretty good rate. They'll come in. It'll usually be 25 to 30 days.
Yeah.
At a discounted rate. And we give them a diet, and they do our group workouts, and we set up a challenge between the team members. So it's usually groups of 2, and we do the top 3 teams. They get a cash prize, and it's based off of percentage of body weight lost. So like I said, we do this 2 to 3 times a year. We've been doing it since 2012, and we've kind of done it off and on. Last year we did 3, and we'll probably do 2 or 3 again this year. And kind of to talk about some history of that, my first one that we ever did was 2012, and I think it was February or March we did it, and it was 21 days. So we ran this promotion. It was 21 days for $21, and it was basically a 21-day carb cycling diet. And before I did it, I had a lot of apprehension about doing it because it restricts quite a bit of things, and it's really not something that the average person wanting to lose some weight should be doing. They could achieve just as much with a lot less effort.
Right.
So really my issue with it rather is that you're kind of teaching people bad habits when you do it. And I kind of knew it before I did it. And then against my better judgment, we went ahead and did it. And then for the next 3 or 4 years, I would hear from people every so often, I'm going to do the 21-day thing. I'm going to do the 21-day thing. And I would just shake my head and look at the floor because I'm just like, that is not the intention of it. Right. It's a pretty restrictive diet.
Yeah, Jamie, talk about carb cycling a little bit for those. I don't know what it is. And I know it might be commonplace to some people out there, but if they don't know what it is, give them a 2,000-foot view of it or whatever.
Well, basically what you do is you plan out. It's usually on a 7-day basis is how I've done it in the past. I'm sure there's other ways to do it. But you basically come up with a high number. So it might be 150 carbs or something like that. And I'm just throwing out numbers here. By no means is this something somebody should follow. So you'd have a high day, and you usually have 1 to 3 of those. You would have a moderate day. Again, 1 to 3 of those, however it falls, and then a low day, which would be, again, 1 to 3, kind of depending on the person. So, you may take them down to, 50 carbs 2 days a week, 100 carbs 3 days a week, and then, I have 2 days left. Then you might do 150 carbs the other 2 days. The way I've done it in the past is I'll do 0 days. So I've done that when I've dieted down to 4% body fat, which is, if you don't know what that is, that's like losing the fat off the bottom of your feet.
That's pretty extreme, huh?
Yeah. Yeah, I had veins in my abs. So, and I mean, that's the thing is you might do something like that with somebody who's getting down in those single digits like that, but it's unnecessary for the average person.
Sure.
And, some of my clients at the time knew that I had dieted down to that, and they wanted to know what I did. So, against my better judgment, like I said, I gave them that. And then, what it does is if you really don't have a good grasp of everything and understand, why you're feeling the way you're feeling and so forth, you will follow this diet plan, or any other crash diet that there may be, and then you binge at the end of it, and you rebound bigger than you were in the first place.
Yeah.
And that's really the number one problem in my industry, and I just really don't want to be part of that.
Yeah, it's so easy to do. I mean, it's just if you don't fundamentally change your lifestyle, you are always you're gonna end back. You're just gonna veer back to where you started from. That's all those crash diets. I mean, I remember way back in the day, the cookie diet. Remember that when they came out with those? They were like these cookies, and you ate like 6 cookies throughout the day.
I think I remember.
And then you had a dinner. You ate like a chicken breast and salad for dinner. It was something like that, and tons of people were losing all this weight on it, of course, because you're starving yourself. I mean, I think you're eating like 1,000 calories a day,
Yep.
and they jammed whatever nutrients in those cookies, and I put cookies in air quotes because they weren't like, they weren't
Mrs. Fields.
Yeah, they weren't Oreos. I'll tell you that. But yeah, and of course everybody lost weight, but that's just, I mean, if you starve yourself, you're going to lose weight. But then, is that something you can maintain? And then do you have the discipline? If that's what you do to, like you said, for 21 days, you have the discipline to gradually get yourself back up to where something you can maintain, long term. And most of us, it's like, no, because you just fall off that wagon and boom, pizza city.
Yeah. Something you said about, what was it you mentioned there? One thing that made me think of something I wanted to throw in there. I don't know. But anyway, yeah, a big thing that people struggle with when they go on any of these, diet plans that restrict a lot is the rebound is bigger than, the results they got while they were restricting everything. And, at the end of the day, it's just a calorie equation. Right. I think there was a guy, I think it was at KU, a professor that did a study. He ate nothing but Snickers bars, I believe.
I remember that.
And lost weight.
Yeah, it might not have been Snickers, but I do remember that thing where it was...
well, I think there's another guy that ate McDonald's or something, too.
Well, that was the documentary. The guy did Super Size Me.
Well, that's another one.
Oh, a different...
The Super Size Me guy gained weight.
Yeah, he did gain weight.
Yeah, showed his triglycerides and all that stuff.
Yeah, he felt terrible and all that. I mean, not surprised.
Yeah.
I ate there one day, and I regret it for a month. But, yeah, I didn't... But I forget the other one that it was somebody that did a junk food type thing like that, and they lost X amount of pounds over certain days because they, it was a calorie restricted or whatever, but...
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's basically just, eating fewer calories than what you burn in a day. And that was a big thing. So we did our meeting for this challenge. The challenge, like I said, started December 31st, so roughly 10, 11 days ago. We did our meeting on Sunday, the 30th of December, and that was a big thing. I told everybody when we met that day was, and I say this often, is you need to learn how to lose weight without exercise.
Yeah.
And, something I want to get better at myself and I want us to be better at with my business is teaching people long-term solutions, results, whatever you want to call it. Just because, that's really our job is to educate people. And not have, a scarcity mindset of where you think you have to keep them forever.
Sure.
You should teach the person in front of you, and then that person will go and tell 5 or 10 other people is how it should be if you do a good job.
Right.
But yeah, my big thing that I try to get across is figure out how to lose weight and maintain your weight without exercise. And then something else I talked about on there. So I gave them what's called the vertical diet. It's a diet that was basically written by Stan Efferding. He's a professional bodybuilder. He coaches a lot of elite athletes, UFC fighters, World's Strongest Man, professional bodybuilders, powerlifters. The guy's very bright. If you guys want to look him up, you can find him on YouTube. He has tons of good information. Definitely a lot smarter than I am. So look him up if you want some good information beyond the stuff that I talk about. Hopefully this year we'll also have him in here for a seminar, so I'm trying to line that up for this year to have him come in. But So it's called the Vertical Diet. It's a PDF. You can buy it on his website. I bought it about a year ago. I've been following it myself off and on. And I say off and on because when I'm off of it, I necessarily won't eat good all the time. When I'm on it, that's pretty much all I eat, which is, he focuses a lot on your micronutrients. And then, so what the vertical is your vertical foods that you increase or decrease based off your goals. So if you're trying to gain weight, you increase them, which is basically red meats and white rice. If you're trying to decrease your weight, you're going to decrease your vertical foods, your red meats and your white rice. But some of the things that are on there, so there's the vertical foods, which is red meat, white rice, and there's the horizontal foods, which is, fruits, nuts, some whole eggs, potatoes, butter, carrots, salmon, spinach, peppers, dairy sources, cranberry juice, chicken stock, and salt are basically your for your micronutrients. Those are your horizontal foods. So you basically want to get a little bit of those every day to make sure you're getting your micronutrients, which is, B vitamins, iron, all that good stuff, to make sure your hormones are proper, your thyroid's working properly, gut health, all that kind of stuff, energy. But that's kind of the base of the diet, I guess you could say. And then he talks a lot about sleep, exercise, how many calories you burn and that kind of stuff. So that's what I wanted to talk about here next, which is a big part of what I try to get across to my clients.
Because this is actually meant as a standalone tool for people to lose weight. Is that correct? And then, and you can apply it obviously to strength training and things like that. But at its very base level, if someone just wanted to follow this and do that, because I think he talks about like going for walks and things like that, right? If I remember from the meeting and stuff. And so it's more than just a. It's not just for bodybuilders or strength training. It's pretty much an all around like lifestyle diet.
Yeah, and that was something I kind of brought across whenever we did the meeting. Was you look at the average person that walks in. The average person does not eat well. They don't sleep well. They drink alcohol. All these things, and everybody's looking for the magic pill. And it's really simple.
Yeah.
If you would start sleeping better, 8 to 10 hours a night, and then cut out processed foods. Those two things, cut out alcohol. If you do those things, it's basic. You will lose weight. The average person will.
Sure.
It's the things we do, not the things we don't do, that have you in the situation you're in a lot of times.
Right.
So, everybody's focused on exercise. And the thing is I sell exercise so I could feed into that lie if I wanted to.
Sure.
But it's not exercise. Exercise is going to help you, but it's really all nutrition and lifestyle. So, one of the biggest things that most people need to address is their sleep first and foremost, and then that will make... that'll improve your energy levels. It'll improve your hormones. It'll improve your cravings. All those things. It's,
right.
We're doing so many things to hurt ourselves. If we just stop doing those things,
right?
We're
starting.
We'll all get leaner.
Yeah, because you're starting a deficit when if you're missing an hour or two, like that one of those podcasts where we talked about it. And I never thought about it either. But you start adding those up. And, buddy, I'm telling you, you miss an hour or two a night, it doesn't take long before you're in a massive deficit for sleep. And it's just like everything else. It just compounds over time. And then, I know it. It changes. It alters my mood. It alters my willpower. I want to eat more. If I'm not sleeping, and especially there's a lot of that ties into, not to get too far off track here, but that hustle culture.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, of
That's
course.
Bullshit.
Yeah, it's like you got to work hard. But you also got to take care of yourself,
Yep.
or you're going to end up negating all the work you're doing because you're going to be working you're not going to be working at your peak ability, regardless of whether you're a doctor or an accountant. It doesn't matter what your profession is. If you're not well rested, you're just not going to perform as well as you could be.
Well, and the other thing is you can have all the money in the world, but it's not worth nothing if you're dead.
This is true.
That's the big thing. These people that talk about hustling, this is a whole different subject, but these people that talk about that, they talk about getting 4 hours of sleep a night.
Yeah.
That's like a recipe for a heart attack.
It's crazy, yeah.
So, and I mean, I own a business. I work a lot. I probably get about 6 hours of sleep a night. I try to nap during the day. So, I'm guilty of this myself. But the bigger thing is just being aware of it. Right. I try to get as much sleep as I can on a weekly basis, if that makes sense. So sure. I try to catch up on the weekends. They say that doesn't work, but along those same lines, the thing that I think about a lot when it comes to sleep is disease. Everybody wants to be leaner and all this other stuff, but what are you doing to your brain? What are you doing to your heart? Those sort of things. When you're losing sleep like that on a regular basis.
Sure.
Sure. That's when your body heals itself and recovers. So if you're constantly not banking that sleep, you're doing yourself a lot of harm that you can't see.
Right.
But so the big thing is that I want to talk about, next on this is the amount of calories you burn on a daily basis. And I found this part very interesting in the vertical diet. If you guys buy this or you have it yourself, it's page 27. But 70% of your daily calories are burned at rest. So, that's a big thing. Everybody thinks they need to do cardio to lose fat, or exercise in general. That right there tells you 70% of the calories that you're burning on a daily basis is coming from BMR, basal metabolic rate. So just... if you laid in bed all day, you'd be at 70%. 15% is burned from your daily activities. So this is called non-exercise activity thermogenesis. NEAT is the initials for that. That's basically, going to work, walking the dog, getting up, getting dressed in the morning. All your daily activities you do that's not in the gym. About 10% of your daily calories are burned from eating food. So all the food that you eat has a thermic effect. Basically, your digestive system, how to break it down. Proteins are the hardest thing for your body to break down, so they burn more calories than fat and carbs. And then only 5% of your daily calories are burned from exercise. So this is your exercise activity thermogenesis, known as EAT. So, again, I shouldn't be telling you guys this stuff because I sell exercise, but... I would rather be honest with people than lie to them. So my thing is yes, I sell exercise, but the big thing that we try to do is I view myself similar to a financial advisor, but I'm your basically like your health advisor. So when somebody comes in and sees me, I'm going to talk to them about sleep and nutrition, and then they're going to invest a certain amount of time in the gym, just as you would invest a certain amount of money into a retirement account. And I'm going to tell you how best to invest that time. And 99.9% of the time, that time is best invested into lifting weights. That will raise your metabolism. It will help you maintain your metabolism as you get older. It's good for bone health. It's good for joints, so long as you're doing it correctly. But, yeah, that was kind of a real big part of what we talked about the other day, and a lot of times people kind of gloss over when I start talking about this stuff because it's not flashy and fun.
Right.
But and I said it on Sunday. I'm like, everybody was kind of just looking at me with a blank stare when we got done, and I'm not sure if they were just overwhelmed by it or if they were disappointed that I didn't give them a crash diet. But like I said, I believe my job at the end of the day is to give the best tool I have to people to help them succeed.
Sure. And
when I was sitting down thinking about what I'm going to give them the week prior to starting this, the vertical diet was far and above the best option I have.
Well, and I think that's again, if you're honest with yourself, as much as the crash diet might seem appealing because you'd drop X amount of weight, and you've got to you've got to look big picture. And that doesn't matter what you're talking about. But with this stuff, again, this is something that's sustainable over a long term. You can increase or decrease based on your wants or needs as far as things go. And it's not something where you're, completely depriving yourself. Like you're not starving yourself with stuff like that. And that's just, you're not going to live that way. You're not going to, and so that just translates into, it's not going to be a long-term success for you. You might have some short-term gains in one way or another, but that's not what we're after. I mean, anybody that does, in my opinion, it's like, you want to look your best, but you want to look your best and then continue to look your best and feel your best and all that kind of stuff that comes along with it. So, it was a lot of that meeting. It was almost all nutrition, I feel like. And I think that might have caught some people off guard if they didn't know if they're coming in here. But it's like that's when they come in to lift weights, they're going to get that instruction and they're going to be taught if they don't already know. And they're, I know you guys work with everybody to get plans built just for them. But I think that can be something that when people come into a gym and they might not be expecting it. But again, why aren't they? I think that goes back to what you kind of talk about with the industry, because so many people are so focused on what you're selling when the true objective of people being here is a healthier life.
Yeah. I mean, most people walk in the door want to lose fat. Sure. I was always shocked, when I worked at the big gyms. I remember I used to have trainers come up to me all the time and say, well, what nutrition advice do you give your clients?
Right.
They had no clue. And the difference is, I do this because I was overweight when I was younger.
Yeah.
And if you've never had to go through that, then you probably have never had the motivation to learn how to eat right.
Right.
So, I mean, that was a difference. And, that was the biggest thing I knew with my clients. I could give them crappy workouts,
Sure.
and if they follow my nutrition, they'll get results.
Right.
Not that I want them to do that necessarily,
right.
to have crappy workouts, but, that understanding how important the nutrition is, sets you head and shoulders above the other people that you're competing against, when you're a personal trainer, knowing how to coach people on nutrition.
Sure.
But I want to read off a little more on this underneath where they talked about the percentage of calories. So the next thing he says is, as you can see, more exercise is not the solution to fat loss. Exercise is a stimulus. The solution to maximal fat loss is as follows. Increase your basal metabolic rate, so your resting metabolic rate, by lifting weights so you can add more muscle and burn more calories at rest. That's the biggest thing we talk to our clients about when it comes to exercise. When trying to burn calories to lose fat, stay active throughout the day. Don't sit or remain idle when awake. Stay on your feet and keep busy. Don't underestimate how valuable this can be. A big thing on this also, which I think I've talked about before with cardio, is also when you sit all day, you cause a lot of muscle imbalances. So a lot of times I see with my clients who sit all day is they're tight in their hips and they're tight in their shoulders. So not only are you going to burn more calories if you have a stand-up desk, you're also going to reduce back pain, knee pain, shoulder pain, and set yourself up for more success when you do lift weights, because when you have tight hips and tight shoulders and those sort of things, it does cause problems when you go to lift weights. Number 3, eat a high-protein diet, generally a gram of protein per pound of body weight, and eat frequent meals so as to not create a protein deficit and to fuel increased workload. Number 4, exercise. And then the last thing underneath that says, in that order. So the other thing on this, and something that I will get that people disagree with me often on, is just below this, there's a thing that says regular cardio will make you fat. And then there's a link to it on T Nation, which is a fairly popular, I guess you could say, blog,
Sure.
Fitness blog, exercise blog. And basically, I've read that article. It basically talks about how your body adapts to that certain environment, and you're basically telling your body to get rid of muscle, which if you're a endurance athlete, there's nothing wrong with that, because it's going to make you more efficient at that activity, which if you were trying to run a marathon, then whether you like it or not, that's what you're telling your body to do, is get rid of muscle to make you more efficient. Just as if you lift weights, you're telling your body to become more efficient at lifting those weights, so it's going to put on muscle. So there's nothing wrong with either activity. What's wrong is if you don't understand the response to that activity. So if you click on that link, if you have this, it's pretty good information on
and even
the negatives of cardio.
If that's an open blog, you can probably just Google search T Nation. What was that? Regular cardio will make you fat. If you Google search that, you should be able to find that blog that you can read about on your own if you'd like that without having the PDF handy.
Yeah, perfect. As far as beyond that, I don't know. One thing that I've heard Stan talk about before is how everybody should have a blood test done. A big one that I see this with men is men will come in and, I can basically look at a man and tell you if his testosterone's low. I know that sounds crazy and ridiculous, but, I've been doing this long enough. I'm kind of a meathead myself, so it's just what I notice, So, and there's natural ways you can fix that through getting more sleep, through eating better, and that's usually what I recommend people do to start. But, if you go in and get your thyroid checked and get your hormones checked and those sort of things, you can get an idea of where you're at. And a lot of times just changing your behaviors can help with that. So, like if your thyroid's messed up, if you're not getting enough sleep, if you're not getting enough salt in your diet, if you're not getting enough iodine in your diet, that can affect that. If you're not eating properly, that can negatively affect your thyroid. Just as much as all those things can affect your testosterone as well. And those two things will help you get leaner if you fix them, obviously.
Hey, Jamie, what do when you say that, the testosterone thing I've always been curious about. When you say you can tell by looking at somebody, are there signs, or how do you, is it something that you know just from seeing, or is it,
You'll get me in trouble.
Oh.
A lot of times it's when they come in and you can when you do their body fat test, they're carrying more fat or they're carrying fat in places they shouldn't be.
Gotcha.
Believe it or not, I think I can see it a lot of times with the way they carry their shoulders.
Okay.
Because a lot of times this will sound nuts, but the poor posture is also kind of an indicator of, the whole cascade of things going on. And it's, I don't know. This probably sounds nuts to anybody listening, but you can see it in their diet. They're eating a lot of processed foods. They're not getting enough cholesterol-based protein in their diet, which your body uses cholesterol to produce testosterone hormones. A lot of times I can see it in their strength.
Yeah.
So if I have a guy come in and, he's quite a bit weaker than he should be.
Sure.
A lot of times, and, I could be wrong, but a lot of times you can assume that they probably, their testosterone is probably low,
Sure.
which a lot of times you can fix that by getting them, a better nutrition plan and more sleep.
Right.
But also just in today's society, I just think more and more men have low testosterone.
Sure.
And I think that is because of diet and poor sleep. If you would go back, I would guess 40 or 50 years, we were probably getting more sleep. We were eating more red meat.
Right.
We're eating more of the foods that have cholesterol in them that we use to produce testosterone, and we didn't have as much stress.
Sure.
But so maybe it's more of a fact that, it's common today.
Yeah, we weren't spread so thin back in the day as far as people running around like
absolutely
everybody. And again, you can call it the hustle culture, whatever. But it's even if you're not working for yourself, a lot of times if you're in corporate America, you're putting in a solid 10 hours a day, and then you've got personal responsibilities, be it a family or a spouse, and next thing you know, it's hard to find time to take care of yourself. And if you don't do that, then everything else begins to suffer. I've just always been fascinated by the testosterone thing because I don't know, I'm a guy and I'm in that age group where you hear about it. It's like, I don't know. I don't feel sluggish. I'm healthy-ish. I'm not, but I'm definitely, I don't take as good a care as I should have of myself. but it's always something that I work on. But it was just something that I was curious about as a guy that's in that age where it, where it happens. Because when you're young, that's what you're just.
Well, so there's a couple things there. I'll see if I can remember when I'm talking about this. But so I think they say our testosterone starts dropping late 20s, early 30s. So, by the time you get to the age we're at, I'm 36, you're
43.
43. We probably have lower testosterone. So there's that. And then there's something else I was going to say. I can't remember the other one. But, at this age, I know what I was going to say. So the biggest thing on that, I would say, and I've heard this before about some of the people you see when you go to these hormone clinics. If you're not addressing your sleep and nutrition
first,
I would not go take, hormone therapy.
It reminds me, there was a guy that I used to know way back when, and he was very unhealthy, and he was diabetic, and instead of regulating his food, he would just eat the cake.
Most of them do that.
And it's like,
most of them do that. It's maddening.
Yeah, and I like this guy, and I really liked his wife too. And I'm like, man, how are you doing this to your wife? Like, it doesn't counter. I mean, it does counteract, but that's not how it's supposed to be used. You've got to regulate that stuff on the front end, and that's kind of what you're saying too. If you should take steps A and B before you jump to C, which is C is the hormone clinic or whatever that's.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is lifting weights.
Yeah.
Causes testosterone release and growth hormone release,
right,
for men and women. So, it's not significant amounts, but those are you should address your sleep first, address your nutrition, and then start lifting weights. And then I would say basically every man over the age of 35 or 40 should go get his testosterone checked. And it's gonna prolong your life. All those things are going to prolong your life: lifting weights, sleeping, better nutrition. But so I mean that's a big thing that Efferding talks about is getting a blood test. Another big thing on there is your vitamin D. So vitamin D is low in almost everyone. Mine was low. I had mine checked, so I went and had a blood test in July, and really the only thing that was wrong was my vitamin D, which. Everybody's, a common thing they'll say is your vitamin D, you're not going to get enough from the sun. So where we live, so you need to be supplementing with it. So I've been supplementing with it since then, and I need to go back and get it checked again because it's probably about where it should be. And you can overdose on vitamin D if you're if that number gets too high and you're taking too much. So when you do start taking it, generally I recommend all my clients get their vitamin D checked. Few do, but most people's will be like 20 or 30 or lower, and it needs to be about 60 to 80. So I'll recommend they get that checked, and then usually what you'll do is you'll take, 8 to 10,000 IUs a day, maybe a little more, to get it up where you want it. And then once you get it where you want it, I usually tell people to figure out a maintenance dose, which is kind of something you'll figure out through trial and error. But you have to keep going back and getting your blood checked.
Sure. Will that counteract this, like, everybody feels sluggish in the winter. You know what I mean? Will it do that if you add vitamin D to your
low vitamin D levels have been correlated with depression.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It was especially bad when I lived in Nashville because they were right on the border, so it got dark at like 3:30, 3:45 in the afternoon. I mean, the whole town was depressed for 3 months. But yeah, that's interesting for sure.
Yeah. So, beyond that, so far the challenge we just, I guess it's Thursday today, so we're wrapping up our second week. At the end of our first week, we were down 126 pounds, I believe, and that's taken out a few people that gained some weight, so roughly 130 pounds, and that was, what did I say, about 35 people weighed in, so it was about 3.5 pounds per person. We did have one couple that's pulling a lot of the weight. Literally, they lost. So 20% of that number was from them. I'm not real sure what they did or didn't do last week.
It's pretty fascinating.
Yeah, and Yeah, it was pretty significant, those two. But, for the most part, we got a lot of people losing 3 to 5 pounds the first week. And we, like I said, we haven't eaten a lot of red meat. There's fruit in their diet. There's vegetables in their diet. Getting plenty of salt in their diet is encouraged. Salt helps with digestion. It also helps with your thyroid. So, the whole salt craze is also another thing that we've been misled about. There was something I was listening to a month or so ago, and I may get this wrong, but you'll get the gist of it. They said something along the lines of you are at a higher risk for or maybe it's higher risk for death or cardiovascular. I think it's higher risk of mortality with consuming under 2 grams of salt a day, which is what's recommended by the Food and Drug Administration
or whatever.
Yeah. So, or nutritionist or whatever. You're at a higher risk of mortality under 2,000 than you are at 3,000, I think it was, or maybe a little over 3,000. But, that was a big thing that I got from Stan Efferding probably 2.5 years ago. And I started taking a lot of salt, and, man, it improved my performance in the gym tremendously.
Really?
It was something I heard almost 6 years ago now from Charles Poliquin. It was funny because we're sitting there listening to him. We're like, well, what do you eat, Charles, when you go out to eat?
Yeah.
And he's like, I get a ribeye with butter, and I cover it in salt.
Oh, my God.
And we were like, what? Now, granted, if you're listening to this, Charles Poliquin, he did recently have a heart attack and pass away. However, I think it was in his genetics versus...
Sure.
I think his dad passed away at an early age as well. So some of those things you can't prevent, but the big thing is try to do, what you can to set yourself up for success. But anyway, so I've been doing the salt for quite a while, and I've noticed that does help a lot. What happens a lot with the salt is people are afraid of salt because they think it's going to bloat them. It's just like water in the fact that when you're dehydrated and you drink a bunch of water, you're going to retain it at first because your body's holding on to it because it doesn't know when it's going to get more because it's depleted. And then it'll release it and kind of regulate itself. So it'll do the same with salt. When you start consuming more salt, at first you're going to retain a little water, maybe 3 to 7 days, and then it'll kind of regulate itself and kind of go to normal. But it should not bloat you if you're, consuming it consistently and not consuming too much of it. And generally what Efferding recommends, I think it's about 3 to 6 grams a day. So, salt your foods and all that kind of stuff. Definitely don't restrict it like, what a lot of people do. But anyway, back to the challenge. So we were down 130 pounds the first week. We're at day 11 now. People are still seeing really good results. We basically have them coming in 3 to 6 times a week. That's kind of up to them how often they want to come in. Like I already said, we try to get it across to them that exercise is not the solution. The solution is, getting your sleep and food and all that other stuff right, and then adding exercise to it. And basically they're coming in and lifting weights when they come in for the majority of the time. Then they may do some high-intensity intervals for 10 minutes. So they'll lift weights for about 45 minutes to an hour and then hit. And, a big thing that Efferding talks about when it comes to cardio is doing basically weight-based cardio. And what that does is when you're doing it, you're still stimulating muscles, so you're going to be sending a message to your body to maintain or grow muscle. So what he talks about with that is like weighted carries, also known as farmer's carries, pushing a sled which has weight on it. We do weighted ropes, so we have ropes that weigh 50 or 55 pounds. So basically just doing things against resistance.
Sure.
He'll talk about 20-rep squats or doing supersets of weights, so basically like training alternating body parts. So you might do chest back work. You'll go do a chest press, go immediately to your back. The big thing with that is make sure your technique's not getting sloppy so you don't hurt yourself and so you're getting something out of it. And then the other thing he talks about, I'll see if I can find it here so I'm not just running stuff off and making no sense. he talks about doing 10-minute walks, which I found this very interesting. He's got a YouTube video on this, and they found that 10-minute walks were a better solution to diabetes than metformin, I believe. They got better results from doing, I think it's 2 to 4 10-minute walks a day versus taking metformin. Let me see if I can find it. I think I'm about to it here. Yeah, I have to look somewhere else for it. But let me read one more thing on here, and then we'll find the 10-minute walk thing. So this is kind of the last thing I wrapped up our challenge with. And he's got a little thing on here at the very end. It says compliance. So he started with sleep, and I'm finishing with compliance. The single most important part of being successful with any diet or training program, or anything for that matter, is compliance. Those who fail simply stop complying with the program. They quit. It may be for any number of legitimate or not so legitimate reasons, but the failure is the same either way. Consistently executing your plan is the only way to succeed. It's 1% inspiration, 90% perspiration. That's why the program needs to be simple and sustainable. It needs to become part of your lifestyle without detracting from work, family, and fun. And then the last thing he has there is a quote: "What's the best diet? The one you'll follow. What's the best exercise? The one you'll do." There was something else I was going to add to that. This compliance thing's been, as I've gotten older, or whatever it is, and I started following this guy on Instagram too, that talks about compliance and this kind of stuff. He's like, and I'll get the quote wrong, but he said, when clients aren't losing weight and they tell you that they're not eating very much, they just don't realize they're eating too much. Right. So there's no possible way, is essentially what he's saying, if you're eating under the amount of calories that you burn on a daily basis, that the scale is not going to go down. And it sounds crazy. I've been doing this for 15 years. But that's refreshing to hear, because you want to believe people. Right. And I'm not saying people intentionally lie. Yeah. I just think they're unaware of the amount of food they eat sometimes and the calories they eat. And I'm very detailed with what I do. Like, if somebody gives me a plan, I'm going to follow it to a T, because I want to know if I failed or the plan failed. Right. And I would prefer to blame myself. Sure. Because if the plan fails, then I'm back at square one. Right. But, and the thing is, I've had numerous clients over the years. I've had clients get mad at me over the years, that they're following what I'm telling them and they're not getting results. And what I do is I'll beat myself up about it. Like, man, what am I, Right. Like, I just can't figure it out. Right. And, when I see this kind of stuff, it's like, I think I was right all along. And I'm not tooting my own horn when I say that. It's just like, generally those people aren't being detailed and writing down every single thing that they're eating and weighing it and all that kind of stuff. And when I say that, don't freak out. I don't think people should weigh their food. But if you don't know why you're not losing weight, just like if you don't know why you're not successful at anything, you need to be meticulous about what you're doing and write down what you're doing so you can find the failure. Hey, you need to troubleshoot. You need to have a realistic, honest audit of your actions. And that, like you said, if you have a problem finding it, it doesn't matter what part of your life that you're not happy with. And that's the hardest thing to do, is look in the mirror and be like, all right, well, and Jamie, you and I are on the same page about this, but when you look at something, it's like, well, this is my doing. Mm-hmm. I am in my life based on and bad things happen to good people all the time, but more often than not, it's the choices we make on a daily basis. And again, more often than not, it's the small things that we do consistently. And that's either small good things that we do consistently or the small bad things. And that puts us in the
the situation that we're in life, be it financial, be it physical, be it if you continue to stay in a relationship that's just not great, it's just going to deteriorate over time. It's going to get worse over time. It's not going to fix itself unless you look at it, are honest with yourself. What's my part in this situation? And then fix it. Like you said, if you want to know if the plan is not working or if you're not working, and if you're not working, then you can fix it. But the only way to really fix it is to know exactly where the issue is, so you can attack that issue without just throwing up your hands and calling it quits.
Yeah, I mean, I say that all the time to people. Like, failing at something is not a big deal. Not understanding why you failed is that's the problem.
If you don't learn a lesson out of it, if you don't figure something out through that failure, then you've wasted time, and that's really unfortunate, because if you gained wisdom, if you gain experience, if you gain all those things, you can gain through failure. It's the only way to get those things, actually.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing I'm trying to understand whenever I am meticulous about writing stuff down, is I want to understand where where I'm falling short and how to adjust it, and then when you figure out where you're falling short and what you need to adjust, then that's the point where you decide, okay, I'm willing to do this, or that's just too much for me, I'm not going to do it.
Right.
And my big deal is it's nothing's a big deal.
Right.
Not understanding it is the big deal.
Yeah.
Any failure is not a big deal. Not understanding why you failed is a huge problem. And I say all the time, if I have somebody comes in and like, listen, Jamie, I'm going to eat pizza and I'm going to drink whiskey 5 times a week, but I want to lift weights, I'm like, cool, not a big deal.
Yeah.
Whereas if somebody else comes in, they're like, I want to lose weight, and then they're not telling me those things, and then they're questioning me why they're not losing weight. It's like, you have to be honest with yourself first, no matter what it is.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I found this stuff on the 10-minute walks and cardio, and I think we'll wrap up with this. But one of the big reasons I like Stan Efferding so much is, and maybe this is a bad way to look at it, but me and him see eye to eye a lot on cardio. And like I said, this guy's a lot smarter than I am. So when I see somebody like this saying this stuff, it solidifies my beliefs. But on the cardio section on page 24, he says, I'm not a fan of steady-state cardio unless your sport is distance running, which is exactly what I said earlier.
Right.
It sends the wrong message to the body when trying to maintain lean body mass. Muscle is heavy. It has a high oxygen demand. It has a high water and nutrient demand. If your body is required to do a lot of steady-state cardio, it will get rid of muscle. Exactly what I said earlier.
Right.
And then on there, right below that, there's another link to T-Nation, and this one is the final nail in the cardio coffin. So you can look that up as well if you'd like. And then he talks about 10-minute walks. So 10-minute walks after meals and hit under load is all you need if you want to improve cardio while still stimulating muscle. So what he recommends here is 20-rep squats, weighted carries, stair sprints, prowler pushes and pulls, which is a sled that I mentioned earlier, uprights to a press, which is a superset of an upright row and a shoulder press, and then antagonistic supersets like chest and back, like I mentioned. And then he gets into 10-minute walks. I recommend 10-minute walks, whether dieting to lose weight or eating to gain weight, strength, and size. A brisk 10-minute walk after each of 2 to 4 meals daily greatly improves insulin sensitivity, decreases gas, improves digestion, decreases DOMS, which is delayed onset muscle soreness, so when your muscles get sore, and aids in recovery. 3 10-minute walks is superior to 1 30-minute walk daily, which is interesting. And there's an article for that. It's in the New York Times. New York Times wrote it, I think. It's on foxnews.com. Short burst exercise may be as beneficial as regular workouts in extending life. So that's a good one to check out. It's also advisable to stand for at least 10 minutes out of every hour throughout the day when you have a sedentary job or are traveling long distance. Sitting is a disease. Don't sit more than an hour without getting up and moving around. This is especially important on long plane flights where some people may even be successively to life-threatening embolisms caused by extended sitting. Sitting for 3 hours a day as opposed to sitting has the equivalent, standing for 3 hours a day rather, as opposed to sitting has the equivalent calorie consumption benefit as running 10 marathons a year. That's a interesting number.
That is an interesting number.
So then there's a link to the science behind the 10-minute walk. I really can't read that link. It's a bunch of numbers and percentage marks and stuff. There's a link for standing versus sitting. Link for 10 surprising benefits of the 10-minute walk. That one's on wisebread.com. 10 surprising benefits of a 10-minute walk. Let's see. People who perform 3 brisk 10-minute walks daily, which is 4,000 steps, had better health outcomes than those who performed over twice as many steps without elevating the heart rate. Hit under load. So we'll talk about what he mentions with doing the high-intensity stuff, which is the carries, 20-rep squats, all that kind of stuff. Provides improved cardiovascular benefits while stimulating muscle. Any weighted exercise utilized with higher reps, brief rest periods, and or supersets will work. And that's all he talks about. I know in another one, he's got a YouTube video where he talks about the 10-minute walks, and I think he references the metformin in there. He references some diabetes drug in there, and that's very interesting, and there's an article on it, I believe, too. But, yeah, I mean, that's basically what we're doing with our challenge participants right now. We're seeing great results, and really my goal of it is that these people continue this stuff, and we're not teaching them any type of crash diet.
Sure.
That's kind of where we're at. I think that's all I have for today.
That's awesome. Yeah, it sounds great. It was really interesting as I was here for the meeting, obviously, and I heard bits and pieces of what you were talking about there. So it was good to hear this kind of walk through in long form, because it is an interesting plan, and like you said, it's a great long-term strategy. Regardless of whether you're trying to bulk up or get lean or whatever your goals might be, that seems like something that could help out a lot of people.
Yeah. So, like I said, hopefully we get Stan in the gym this year to do a seminar. That would be great. I've talked to him about it. I just haven't set it up yet. So it'll probably be on a Saturday or Sunday, and it'll probably be a 2-3 hour thing or something like that. But thank you for listening today. If you have any questions, leave us a comment under the video or under the podcast, whatever. I'm not technologically savvy.
Yeah, you can also you can jump on our Instagram, which is Plunkett Fitness, and DM us there. And Jamie's website is the website plunkettfitness.com. There's contact links on there as well if you have any questions or you want to reach out to Jamie.
Yeah. So thanks, guys, for listening today. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to the Plunkett Fitness Project. Please share with your friends, subscribe, rate, and review. For more info, visit our website, plunkettfitness.com.